The intent and aim of this project is to capture design elements in deconstructivist architecture that reflect the meaning behind the architect's design. My gaze is also focused on the complexity of the structure and the emotion it portrays. In order to highlight these elements, I am capturing fragments of the structures and emphasizing the design aspects of deconstructivism. My aim is to give the viewer access to another way of seeing it. As architects are inclined to design in fragments, my imagery has reflected this process by showcasing instead of cropped frames. By capturing different parts of the structure, I want to reveal the complexity and express the bigger picture to tell the story behind the architect's intention. I'm inclined to agree with the method of constructing a photograph in respect of highlighting the ambiguity, by casting shadow, light and contrast to emphasize certain aspects. The statement by Smith and Lefty describes this well and resonates with me. To construct means to build or make by putting together various parts. A constructed photograph is one that is formed by bringing together discrete elements to create a final picture. My fascination and interest in this movement began when I was pursuing a degree in interior design. I attended a lecture by Zaha Hadid at RIBA and was instantly inspired by her imaginative concepts and how she had the courage to take risks and really push the boundaries within design. Daniel Libeskind once quoted, "Be innovative. Don't listen to the tried and tested wisdom. Take a risk." And for this, it is a style that breaks all the rules. This is why it appeals to me. It is very much opposed to the idea that a building needs to be consistent and organised. Iconic structures from this movement are broken into basic components that are not connected. Therefore, architects would present a building in terms of individual shapes, which appear to be far more juxtaposed and separated. This in turn will emphasise each shape and angle individually. Besides the fragmentation, deconstructivism often manipulates the structure's surface skin, creating non-rectilinear shapes which appear to distort and dislocate elements of architecture. An Eisenman who was quoting Derrida said, "Architecture is a locus of the metaphysics of presence." Then, providing a more tangible explanation, he explained that deconstructivist architecture seeks to remove all rules and systems from architecture, stripping it all the codified methods of the past. Citing the Holocaust Memorial, he says that his intention was to make the experience of walking through the monument void of any meaning. Being present within the structure gives you no sense of understanding. It is a free-floating signifier. In designing the monument, he sought to reduce the meaning of the experience, similar to how Jews felt in the concentration camps. Zaha Hadid has been renowned for the use of her multiple curves, geometric lines and intricate detail, highlighting interacting spaces in a dynamic sculptural form. I have emphasised these forms by taking frames of the London Aquatic Centre that was influenced by the design concept of the fluid geometries of water in motion. I have superimposed certain areas to highlight the materiality and form. Within this body of work, I have chosen Daniel Libeskind as one of the architects to document, as he is a great pioneer of this movement. He is also regarded widely as a reference figure, especially for what concerns the relationship between architecture and history, including the design of historical museums. The Imperial War Museum, that is housed in an aluminium-clad building, was designed to enhance the stories within and give visitors a multi-sensory experience of war. He states that architecture of a museum should give richer meaning to its subject matter and wanted the building to be a symbol of the effects of war. For this reason, he wanted to create an unsettling nature of war. To reflect the effects of the war, Daniel Libeskind came up with the concept of a globe shattered into three pieces. It was defined as conflict, shade of the globe, and museum. The concept was inspired by a teapot he had dropped out of his window in Berlin and used this as an inspiration for the Imperial War Museum North 3 Shards. And to create the unsettling nature of war, he used a variety of techniques within the architecture to achieve this. The route into the museum is confusing, and the shattered globe that make up the outline of the building also continue inside, affecting how the visitor moves around the museum. The entrance is in the style of a small bunker, which is unlike normal grand traditional museum entrances. When visitors enter, they have to follow a pathway through the air shard that goes back on itself, creating a feeling of disorientation. To create a sense of confusion, the air shard is neither an outdoor or indoor space, and while it offers some shelter, it's also exposed to the elements. The tower in the air shard gives you the impression that it's leaning, but in actual fact, it's straight. It's a technique that was added to disorientate the visitor. At the start of my MA, I was challenged with contextualizing and developing my work due to the lack of experience and knowledge of critical thinking. However, during the Informing Context module and relevant presentations on a weekly basis, I have developed a clearer understanding of critical thinking and referring to practitioners that influence and inform my work. The work of Helen Binet continues to be an influence in my work and thought process. She has built close working relationships with her clients, particularly Zaha Hadid and Daniel Liebeskind. I can relate to her style of imagery in my own practice, as she is also focused on the fragments of a building as opposed to the overall photograph. Her imagery is grayscale and juxtapositions of shadowed fragmented structures highlighted by cool silvers of light, emphasizing the relationship between material, light, and structures. In her exhibition, Fragments of Light, she mentions the relation between the light and space. And she stated, "The sense of the light, the sense of coming out of the dark, it's something that stays very much in the way I photograph." Judith Turner is also of interest to me and is renowned for taking exquisite architectural photographs. I am particularly drawn to her style of imagery and how she uses architectural photography as a tool. It is demonstrated in her book, Seeing Ambiguity. The clever use of light and shadow and contrast is superimposed to accentuate the detail. The beautifully framed, captured elements within a set of fragments give the structure a different meaning, allowing the viewer to interpret the building through their own perception. Hiroshi Sugimoto is also a photographer who I have come across during this module. I like his style of imagery as he creates a sense of ambiguity by blurring the photographs to allow the viewer to perceive the image from a more psychological point of view and by capturing another moment in time. I am interested by his method of using an out-of-focus technique, capturing fragmentation at different angles. Going forward, I would consider experimenting with this method to develop my body of work into a more abstract style. Reflecting back since the beginning of the course, I do feel that my work has turned a corner. However, I'm not completely content with this idea and feel that I need to develop it further, and it is still a work in progress at this stage. I hope that my presumed audience will be architectural websites, publications, and exhibitions that relate to this genre. Thank you for listening.